Gregory Peck, it is so nice to have you back in our Dallas-Fort Worth area. We thank you for coming.
I'm always happy to come here. It's been a few years, but it's by no means my first trip to Dallas-Fort Worth.
I know, because you and I have had several interviews in the past, and one of the things, we have talked about your Academy Award for To Kill a Mockingbird, which was one of the films at the recent USA Film Festival, the Great Actor Retrospective they honored you with. But one of the things that we never did discuss about it was that you had 4 previous nominations before you won for To Kill a Mockingbird. And I'm curious, do you remember what the 4 nominations were for before Mockingbird?
Well, I remember the first one, certainly, the Keys of the Kingdom, because it was only my second movie. And then there was one for 12 O'Clock High. There was one for Gentleman's Agreement. And the other one I forget.
Can I prompt you on the other one?
Yeah, would you?
The Yearling.
Oh, that was it. That was it.
Okay.
But there was to me, inexplicable time lapse between the 4th nomination and the 5th. And the 5th was when I won the Oscar for To Kill a Mockingbird. But if I'm not wrong, it was about 13 years. And I began to think, well, you know, they're trying to tell me something. And I, in fact, had really not thought about it. And, you know, it's not a competition at all. The people who say that are misinformed, because when you start a picture, you don't think, well, now I'm going to be in competition with George C. Scott or Marlon Brando. You don't think that at all. It doesn't occur to you. You're too busy trying to play the part well and trying to make a decent movie. And that's all you think about, isn't it? You don't think about the Oscar at all when you're making a movie. The so-called competition is something that's drummed up by the press, you know, for excitement and fun for the public later on. But it is actually a very straightforward award from your fellow workers to you for a job well done. I never think of it as a competition.
When you were up, though, for Mockingbird, Gregory, did you think that your chances were pretty good, because you had rough competition that year?
I was entirely prepared in my mind to see Jack Lemmon win, and
for Wine and
I
Roses.
admired him greatly, and I did then, and I still do. Everything that he does, he's a splendid, first-rate American actor, and I thought, well, if he wins for The Days of Wine and Roses, I won't have a complaint in the world. And I was quite resigned, and as I say, I really never thought of this thing competitively anyway. But they read my name, and I somehow staggered up. I don't remember what I said. It was a thrill. I can't understand people who are blasé about that. And I remember even hard-bitten types like John Wayne shedding a tear or two. It's such a great thrill, really.
It has to be.
Yeah.
It just has to be. You are now into producing films, Mr. Producer, Gregory Peck.
Right.
And the one that you have coming out pretty soon now, called Dove, is a film that I've been looking forward to, Greg, because when Robin Lee Graham started that voyage and when National Geographic carried the stories about it, I read it with such great fascination. I'm now reading the book. It's in paperback, as you probably know. I'm interested in the young man. Where did you find him, and how did you find him? Who's going to play Robin?
Well, when we decided to go ahead and put this story on film, we realized that it had to be the right fellow, because if you don't cast the right young man in that role, and the right girl, because it's almost a two-person picture. There are incidental characters around, Fijians and South Africans and Australians as he goes around the world, but essentially everything depends on those two people. And a real catastrophe would be to get halfway through the picture and realize that you had the wrong Robin Graham. There's simply no turning back.
Yes, because he was 16 when he started that trip around the world in, what was the size of that boat?
23
feet.
Yeah. So we interviewed, all in all, I would say 40 young men in Hollywood and New York. And he was he came early along. He was almost the second or third boy that we saw.
Now this is Joseph Bottoms.
Joseph Bottoms, the younger brother of Timothy Bottoms.
Yes.
And we kept coming back to him, and one day the director, Charles Jarrett, and I decided that we were just wasting motion, that this was the fellow.
Gregory, who plays the girl, Patty?
A very beautiful young lady, Deborah Raffin, and I think She may be the new Grace Kelly, charming actress, tall and willowy and wonderful to look at.
Now, what locations did you have for this picture?
Oh, it's an itinerary that took us around the world. South Pacific, Fiji, Australia, Mozambique, South Africa, Panama, out to the Galapagos Islands, and up to Los Angeles, where the boy started.
Mm-hmm. Now, in filming it, did you have any adventures, anything similar to what Robin encountered in the actual journey?
Well, I've been involved in so many artificial studio-made storms in my various maritime epics that I thought we'd do this one for real, if possible. So we deliberately went to a place on our around-the-world trip. We flew from country to country. Perth, Western Australia, where they guaranteed gale force winds every afternoon during the month of August. August is the dead of winter down there. Sure enough, we photographed a storm sequence in 30, 40-mile-an-hour winds, and the swells varied from 20 to 40 feet high. The little boat was bobbing and pitching out there, and we had surrounded with auxiliary boats with cameras. And it's scary. The power of the sea and the enormous ability of that ocean to pick people up and overturn boats and sweep people away. We had everybody tied fast. About 6 people fell overboard, but we fished them all back in. And we got a wonderful storm sequence, and fortunately we didn't hurt anybody seriously. A few people were banged up a little.
Yes. Do you have other film projects that you're looking at now, Gregory?
Well, yes, I do, but I'm not free to talk about my next picture because it's just in the very beginning stages.
As producing or
Well,
acting?
this will be, again, I'll be producing without performing, but I don't think I'm through as an actor yet. There'll be something else coming along.
Please don't be through as an actor.
Oh, thank you.
Gregory, thank you so much for this visit today.
Thank you.